The moment the traffic light turned green, I blinked hard and shook my head, trying to clear the sudden blurriness clouding my vision. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. It was early morning in Boston, and the intersection was swarming with cars and honking horns. People were rushing to work, unaware that I was in the middle of a silent, terrifying spiral. My heart raced violently in my chest. My mouth went dry. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. I tried to inhale deeply, to calm the dizziness that seemed to tilt the world around me. But it only made the spinning worse. My vision darkened around the edges. The outlines of buildings, the familiar Boston skyline blurred and warped, as if the city itself was swaying. I can't be late for the Peterson Project meeting, I muttered under my breath, my voice barely audible. It was the biggest day of my career, a day I had worked toward for over a decade. And now? Now I was about to collapse in the middle of rush hour traffic. My arms trembled. Not just trembled, they were losing strength. My foot slipped from the brake pedal. I felt the car inch forward into the intersection. Then, I couldn't feel my limbs at all. "Ma'am, are you okay?" a voice called out. A pedestrian, blurry and indistinct, peered through my half-open window. I tried to respond, to move, to acknowledge them. But my mouth wouldn't cooperate. No sound came out. Suddenly, the car tilted, and my head fell to the side. I was staring straight into oncoming headlights. Then chaos exploded around me. Shouts, screams, screeching brakes. "Call 911. Is she breathing? Somebody get her out of the car." Time unraveled. The next moment I remember was Kimmy assistant-overing over me. Her face, usually composed and bright, was streaked with mascara, her eyes wide with panic. "Mandy, stay with me, the ambulance is on its way." I tried to reach for my phone, to let someone know my husband, my family, but I couldn't move. "Call my family," I whispered, unsure if the words even left my mouth. Then, everything faded to black. When I came to, the world was filtered through haze and hospital white. I felt weightless and heavy all at once. My eyes fluttered open. Machines beeped around me. Tubes ran from my arm, a brace wrapped around my neck. My body felt like it had been run over because, in a way, it nearly had. Billy was there, my husband, his face pale, dress shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot with worry and sleeplessness. He must have come straight from work. "Mandy, you're awake," he said, a mix of relief and worry flooding his voice. He reached for my hand. "Are you in pain? I'll get the doctor." I tried to shake my head, but the pain shot down my spine. A whimper escaped me. He gently stroked my hand. "You were out for 18 hours, he said softly. "You passed out at the intersection and drifted into traffic. The other driver hit the brakes just in time, but your car flipped." Flashes of memory returned. The dizziness, the spinning buildings, the sound of screaming tires, headlights bearing down. "The Peterson meeting," I murmured. "Kim handled it," Billy said. "She stepped in, and the client understood. Everything is fine. Nothing is more important than you being okay." His voice cracked slightly. Tears glistened in his eyes. That's when I realized he thought he might have lost me. "Did you call my family?" I asked. My voice trembled. Billy hesitated. His face changed. "Yeah, there's something you need to know." He picked up my phone and scrolled. "The police contacted your mother. They just boarded a cruise. With Stacy, my sister. Your mom apparently told the officer, and I quote, 'It's a relief to have the freeloader out of the way.'" My breath caught in my throat. Tears welled in my eyes, but they were no longer from pain. I turned my head away. "I'm so sorry, honey," Billy said. He looked like he wanted to punch someone. His eyes searched mine, looking for a way to make this better. "Bring me all the financial documents," I whispered. "Every single one." His eyebrows lifted, but he nodded. I saw the lawyer in him switch on. He squeezed my hand. "I nearly died today, Billy. And they chose the cruise I paid for." The Instagram notification came hours later. I stared at it with shaking hands. A selfie. Stacy on the cruise deck. My parents smiling on either side, holding colorful cocktails. The caption read, "Dream vacation begins. So blessed to have a family that sacrifices everything for what really matters. Cruise life, family first." I turned off the phone. My jaw clenched. It wasn't the physical pain that hardened my resolve. It was the betrayal, the clarity. For the first time in my life, I was ready to sever every tie that bound me to them, and I wouldn't feel guilty about it. The following morning, Billy walked into my hospital room carrying a leather briefcase. It looked out of place among the antiseptic scent and soft hospital beeping, but it was exactly what I'd asked for. "You brought everything?" I asked, my voice still a bit hoarse. "Everything you requested. Mortgage documents, account authorizations, even the auto-pay agreements." He sat down beside me and opened the briefcase carefully, lining up folders and forms on the tray table over my lap. "Are you sure you won't regret this?" he asked gently. "I was nearly killed while they were boarding a cruise I paid for. And then they called me a freeloader. There's nothing to regret." Billy gave a firm nod. He'd always been level-headed, but I saw something in his eyes, years of watching me get taken advantage of, finally given a direction. We started with the mortgage, the house my parents had lived in for 15 years, entirely paid by me. It had started as a temporary solution when Dad lost his job and Stacy was just out of college. It never stopped. Billy read aloud, "Canceling automatic mortgage payments to address. Confirming you are the sole funder." "Yes. Done." "Next, the joint account Stacy used as her personal spending reservoir. Close it," I said. "Even if she tries to reopen one. Don't worry. Freeze all attempts." Billy raised an eyebrow. "There's another linked account you may have forgotten about, your old emergency fund. It's been tapped into over the past 3 years. Small amounts, gradually. Your sister had access." My stomach turned. "Drain it. Move the balance to a private fund." He continued down the list. Medical expenses I'd covered for my mother, Stacy's private therapy sessions, their utilities, insurance premiums. By noon, despite the soreness in every inch of my body, we had untangled over a decade of silent obligations. Billy placed his hand on mine again. "All we need now is your signature on the master revocation file." I signed without hesitation. He stood, collecting the documents. "I can submit these today, but we can also wait until you're discharged, if you want more time." I met his gaze squarely. "I've had 36 years to think about this. Submit it today." And with that, I was free. A week had passed since the accident, and my body was still recovering. The bruises had begun to fade, but the emotional wounds had only deepened. I spent most of my days in a haze, half drugged by medication, half submerged in thought. That morning, the nurse came in with an update. "Your family is here. They want to see you." I didn't even hesitate. "I don't want visitors." She blinked, surprised, then nodded and stepped out. Moments later, the sound of raised voices filtered in from the hallway. "But we're her family," my mother insisted. "She's our daughter," my father added, angry and baffled. The nurse's voice remained calm. "The patient has requested no visitors." Then Stacy's voice cut through, high and sharp. "She's not thinking clearly." Mandy hit her head. "She doesn't know what she wants." I lay still, eyes closed, heart pounding not from fear, but from resolve. This wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity. These people had mistaken my silence for agreement, my generosity for obligation, and my success for servitude. Billy sat beside me, holding my hand. "I know you can hear them. You don't have to change your mind. I'll stand by you." I squeezed his hand. "Thank you." From the hallway, my mother tried again. "We came as soon as we could. We were so worried." A lie. I'd seen their Instagram stories, their tropical drinks, their poolside laughter. They finished that cruise, every luxurious moment. "We're family," Stacy called out. "You need us." I smiled bitterly. They needed something, all right, but it wasn't me. The voices faded. and I knew security had escorted them out. For the first time, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt empowered. Dr. Lee visited that afternoon and gave me a surprising update. To be honest, I thought your recovery would take months, but you're making remarkable progress. I nodded, appreciating the professional praise. I do have one request, I said. When I'm discharged, please don't notify my family. He didn't ask why. He just nodded. Of course. Patient privacy is our priority. Billy picked me up 3 days later. He deep cleaned the house, stocked my favorite teas, and even bought lavender-scented candles. I nearly cried when I stepped through the front door. "Welcome home," he said, wrapping his arms around me. "Your real life starts now." That night, I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, we reviewed updates on my family's situation. "Foreclosure notices have started going out," Billy said. "They're defaulting on the mortgage." "Good," I replied flatly. "What about their calls?" "Ignore them." That afternoon, my phone buzzed. Voicemail from my mother. "The bank just called. We think there's been a mistake. Call us back." I played it on speaker. Billy raised an eyebrow. "Are you going to respond?" I smirked. "I'm just a freeloader, remember?" An hour later, Billy's phone rang. He listened silently, then frowned. "That was my colleague. Stacy is trying to file for temporary conservatorship over you." I laughed despite the pain in my ribs. "She's claiming the accident caused a brain injury and that you're no longer competent to manage your finances." "Let me guess," I said dryly. "She offered to help manage everything?" Billy nodded grimly. "Exactly. I want a countersuit. Harassment and fraud. Make it expensive." He smiled. "With pleasure." Later that evening, my father called. "Mandy, your mom said the bank called. Stacy's been busy. Can you take care of it?" "Why me?" I asked. "Well, Stacy has a promotion coming up. You're off work. You have the time." I almost laughed. "They still think I'm unemployed?" "You're still part of this family," he said. "No, I was your ATM, and I'm closed." Click. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. Peaceful, unapologetic, unshaken. It had been 2 months since the accident. 2 months since I drew a line in the sand and said no more. Dr. Lee called my recovery miraculous. I was walking without crutches. The occasional dizziness reminded me of what I'd endured, but mentally, I felt sharper than ever. I wasn't the same woman who let herself be buried under decades of manipulation. I was done being used. One morning, Billy came into the living room holding a padded envelope. "More letters," he said, his tone neutral. I didn't need to ask who they were from. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable, my mother's cursive, always with a flourish, always trying to look graceful. I tore them open anyway. "Dear Mandy," the first one began. "We made a terrible, unforgivable mistake, calling you a freeloader, taking your devotion for granted. We are deeply sorry. Please give us another chance." The second was from my father. "In 36 years of being your father, I've never felt so ashamed. While you lay suffering, we were enjoying a cruise paid for with your money. I forgot my gratitude. Can you forgive this old fool?" Billy watched me as I read. "Aren't you going to keep them?" "I don't need to," I said simply. Then I dropped both letters into the trash. For 15 years, I'd sacrificed my time, money, energy, self-worth for a love that was transactional. They hadn't reached out because they loved me. They reached out because their support was gone. Billy said softly, "People make mistakes." I cut him off. This wasn't a mistake. If it was, their first words after the accident wouldn't have been about missing a cruise. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was the truth they finally felt comfortable saying. He didn't argue. I stared out the window. Love is action, not words. And for 15 years, their actions said I was nothing more than their bank. 6 months passed. Then one day, Billy's friend Wesley came by. He worked in local media and always had neighborhood gossip. "It's about your family," he said, sipping his coffee. "Their house was foreclosed last month. It went up for auction." Billy frowned. "Already?" They were 6 months behind, Wesley said. Neighbors said Stacy was practically begging the bank to work with them. Didn't help. I didn't say anything. I had expected this. There's more, he continued. Your dad got laid off. Apparently his back's acting up again. No insurance. Your mom picked up part-time hours, but they're barely scraping by. And Stacy, well, he chuckled awkwardly. Someone I know interviewed her. Said the resume was a disaster. She listed fake management titles and couldn't answer basic questions. She asked for a 3-0 salary. When they said that wasn't realistic, she stormed out. I sighed. Stacy was still trying to live inside the illusion. A few weeks later, Billy came home with a grim look. Your dad had an accident, fell at a construction site, fractured his leg. No insurance, no income. That night, Stacy left a voicemail. Mandy, please. We just need 1-0 for Dad's treatment, please. I didn't respond. Billy looked at me. You're not going to help? I shook my head. When I was nearly killed, they went on vacation. Now they expect me to help? No. This is their reality now. Do you regret it? Not at all. I had given them 15 years. 15 years of silent suffering, of covering their mistakes, of hiding my success so they could feel superior. Now, they had to face the truth. I wasn't their savior anymore. I wasn't their safety net. I was free. A few days after the voicemail, my phone rang again. It was my father. Mandy, he began, his tone unusually measured. Your mother told me the mortgage account bounced. Stacy's at work and hasn't responded. Could you look into it? I paused for a long moment. Why me? Well, he said, as if the answer were obvious. You're not working right now. You have the time. And Stacy's got a big promotion coming up. I nearly laughed. So, you still think Stacy is the one supporting the family? There was a pause on the line. Well, of course. She's the one who landed that job at the ad agency. She's always been the one with the stable income. A familiar ache twisted in my chest, but not from sadness. From disbelief. Dad, I said slowly, who do you think has been paying the mortgage all these years? He hesitated. Stacy, right? No, it was me. I've been paying that mortgage for 15 years. Silence. Long, stunned silence. Wait, what? I started covering it when Stacy couldn't keep a full-time job. Then it just became routine. She let you believe it was her, and you never questioned it. That can't be right. You never held a serious position, did you? That stung. Not because it was true, but because of how little he thought of me. What do you think I do, Dad? You work at some consulting firm, right? Maybe make 1,000 a month? My heart sank for a second, then hardened. That was when I was 22. I'm now a senior vice president at an investment bank. I earn 400 a year. The line went dead for a second. 400,000? He repeated, as if the words physically hurt to say. Billy came into the room just then and sat beside me. Everything okay? I just told my dad who I really am. His brows rose. And? We'll see. Later that evening, Billy returned home with a look that said, You're not going to believe this. Stacy's lawyer contacted me, he said, setting down his briefcase. She's withdrawing the guardianship petition. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? She wants a meeting. All three of them. Your parents and her. I sighed. Why now? Apparently your dad confronted her after your phone call, demanded the truth. The meeting was held at our house. Billy insisted on being there. When they arrived, I didn't want to open the door at first. But something in me part that wanted closure said yes. My mother looked fragile. My father was pale. Stacy avoided my eyes entirely. We sat down in tense silence. Let's hear it, my father finally said. Stacy, is what Mandy told me true? Stacy didn't look up. She gave a barely perceptible nod. Say it, my mother demanded. It's true, Stacy whispered. Mandy's been paying the mortgage. Not me. 15 years of deception. Just like that. And the jobs you claimed? The promotions? All fake, Stacy said. I've only had part-time work. My mother sat back, eyes wide. I couldn't even afford my own rent, let alone support anyone, Stacy continued. Mandy did everything. There was a silence so heavy, I felt the weight in my bones. Then my father turned to me. You make 400 a year? Yes. Another long pause. You should have told us, my mother said, trying to regain footing. Why? So you could take more? I asked. No, she said quickly. We didn't know. Stacy always said. She lied, I said coldly. And you believed her because it was easier to believe the golden child had it all together. Easier to think I was the failure. Stacy finally looked at me. Her eyes were wet. I'm sorry. No. You're sorry you got caught. Billy stood. I think that's enough. Mandy has been through enough. They left without another word, and I closed the door on that chapter of my life firmly. The silence after they left was like a fresh breeze. Billy sat beside me, watching me closely. You okay? I nodded slowly. It's strange. I thought I'd feel empty, but I don't. I feel clean, like I finally took off a mask I didn't even know I was wearing. We didn't talk much that night. There wasn't anything left to say. They had heard the truth. I had spoken it. The burden wasn't mine anymore. The next few days were blissfully quiet until the voicemails started coming again. First, my mom. Mandy, please. We were wrong. We were all misled. Can't we just start over? Then, my dad. I don't even know who I am anymore. You've always been the strong one. Help us, please. And then, Stacy. I ruined everything. But you're still my sister. I need you. I didn't respond. Instead, I started writing. Not in a journal, not a private reflection. Something else, something public. A blog. I called it Chosen Family Chronicles. In my first post, I wrote, I used to believe family meant unconditional love, but blood is not a free pass to exploit someone's kindness. Family is who shows up, who supports, who respects your boundaries. That's what makes them real, not DNA. To my surprise, it resonated. The blog gained traction. People began commenting, sharing their own stories. Stories eerily similar to mine. Messages flooded. Ingratitude, anger, hope, heartbreak. One woman wrote, I've been paying my brother's rent for 10 years. I cried reading this. Thank you. Another, my parents treat me like an ATM too. I thought I was alone. I'm not. Billy smiled every time he read new messages over my shoulder. You're helping people, he said. Helping myself too, I thought. Weeks turned into months. My body healed. My soul began to mend too. I wrote daily guides on setting boundaries, recognizing manipulation, protecting your finances from toxic family dynamics. I even recorded a podcast episode. 6 months after launch, I was offered a book deal. Billy came home, waving the contract. Look at this. People need your story. I nodded. Let's give it to them. One evening, I looked through an old photo album. Pictures of birthdays, holidays, fake smiles. I closed it gently and put it back on the shelf. Billy came over and wrapped his arms around me. Any regrets? He asked. None. I'm proud of you, you know. You've really changed. I had to, I said. It was the only way I could survive. And now, I'm not just surviving. I'm finally living. The air was thick with summer heat when the knock came at the door. I was in the middle of outlining a new blog post about recovering from emotional manipulation when Billy answered it. He returned moments later, holding a small bouquet. No note. Just left at the door, he said. Lavender and lilies me favorites. I didn't need to guess who sent them. They're trying everything now, I said, placing the bouquet on the counter without another glance. Billy sighed. You sure you don't want to just meet with them one last time? Closure? I shook my head. Closure came the moment I told them the truth and shut the door. Weeks passed. My book contract was finalized. The first draft poured out of me like a dam had broken. Each chapter was a reflection of wounds, scars, survival, and strength. Billy supported me every step of the way. Late-night edits, chapter brainstorms, even helping with podcast recordings. The blog grew to over 1 million monthly readers. The messages came faster than I could read. One night, after wrapping an interview, Billy walked in with a serious expression. "I just got a call. From Wesley." I paused. "What now?" "He said your family's old house is making the rounds in the local news." "Why?" "They were officially evicted last week. A photo of them carrying boxes out made the paper. Apparently your dad's accident left him unable to work, your mom can't keep up her shifts, and Stacy, she still believes she's a manager?" Billy gave a sad smile. "Something like that. She tried applying for a job at a nonprofit. They rejected her after she demanded an executive role and couldn't provide references." I sat back. I felt nothing. No guilt, no pity, no satisfaction, just nothing. "They're spiraling," he added, "and people are starting to notice." A week later, another voicemail. This one was different. "Mandy, this is Dad. We're not calling for money. I swear. We don't know what to do anymore. We're staying in a friend's basement. Stacy's not talking to anyone. Your mother cries all day. We were wrong, Mandy. So wrong." My finger hovered over the delete button, but I didn't press it. Instead, I hit play again and listened. Not out of empathy, not out of curiosity, but because for the first time, it didn't feel like a demand. It felt like desperation. I let the message finish, then quietly set my phone down. Billy watched me, unsure. "I'm not going back," I said. "I didn't think you would. But maybe I'll write about this too." "Another post?" I nodded. Something raw. About how sometimes, even when they fall, it doesn't mean we owe them a rescue. He came over and hugged me. "Whatever you write, it'll help someone." I leaned into him. And that's all I want now. To help people. To help myself, without being pulled under by the ones who drowned me first. The blog post I wrote that night was unlike anything I'd ever published before. It didn't follow a clean structure or offer actionable tips. It was raw emotion, poured straight from my core. Sometimes the ones who break you come back shattered themselves. And sometimes you have to walk past the wreckage without offering a hand. Not because you're cruel, but because you finally learned that saving yourself was the greatest act of love you could offer to yourself. It became the most read post I'd ever written, shared over 50,000 times in 3 days. The comment section filled with people telling their own versions of the same heartbreak. One reader wrote, "I've been waiting my whole life for someone to say this. Thank you." Another, "You put into words what I could never say out loud." I sat on the floor of my home office, reading through hundreds of messages, tears silently tracking down my cheeks. Not from sadness, from release. I wasn't alone. None of us were. Billy and I began hosting monthly virtual support sessions, small video groups, where people could share their experiences, connect, and start healing. We called it Chosen Circle. The turnout for the first session was overwhelming. 20 people signed up, then 40, then 100. We added sessions just to keep up. Some cried the entire time. Some just listened. But all of them stayed. All of them came back. One night, after a particularly emotional call, Billy pulled me into a hug. "Look at what you've built," he whispered. "This is more than healing. It's transformation." I buried my face into his chest. I just never want anyone else to feel the way I did. Alone. Lied to. Disposable. "You've already changed that for so many." Later that month, a publishing agent reached out. She'd read the blog and wanted to discuss turning the material into a full memoir. The contract included an advance I never expected. I took it without hesitation, not for the money, but for the reach, for the lives it might touch. The book was titled Chosen: Breaking the Cycle of Family Guilt. As I signed the final copy, I realized something. My identity was no longer tied to being someone's daughter, or sister, or provider. I wasn't just the survivor of a toxic family. I was a creator. a writer, a healer. I was me. And that was finally enough. The official release day of my memoir came with a whirlwind of emotions. I watched the digital counter tick higher as pre-orders turned into live sales. My inbox overflowed. Podcasts, radio shows, interviews, it was everything I once dreamed of. But this time, I wasn't doing it to prove my worth to anyone. I wasn't looking for validation from a mother who ignored my achievements or a sister who painted me as a burden. I was doing it for every person who needed a voice when theirs had been silenced. Billy celebrated with me. A quiet dinner, my favorite wine, and a handwritten card that simply read, "You turned pain into purpose." And yet, even in celebration, the past lingered at the edge. The next morning, I found another letter in the mailbox. This time, it wasn't from my parents or Stacy. It was from a woman named Denise, a former colleague of Stacy's. She'd read my book, and she wanted to talk. Denise's email detailed years of small lies, Stacy borrowing money under false pretenses, fabricating job titles, even using my name as a reference on her resume. She told people she was funding you, that she supported your fragile mental health by managing your finances, the email said. I felt the familiar rush of disbelief, but it no longer hit like a wave. It was more like a breeze now, something I could acknowledge and let pass. I thanked Denise for her honesty, and I saved the message, not for revenge but as a reminder of how far I'd come. Later that week, I ran into someone from my childhood, an old neighbor named Carol. She looked surprised to see me. "Mandy, my goodness, it's been years," she said. We chatted for a bit, exchanging pleasantries. Then she tilted her head. "I have to ask, your parents. They said you abandoned them, that you ran off after getting rich." I smiled politely. "They're entitled to their version. I have mine." Carol studied me. Then she nodded. "Well, whatever it is, you seem brighter, stronger." "Thank you," I said. And I meant it. That night, I journaled a single line. "You don't owe anyone the truth who's committed to misunderstanding you." It was a truth I had to learn the hard way, and it was one I'd carry with me always. Peace had come at a cost. Relationships lost. Illusions shattered. But what I gained in return was priceless. Clarity, boundaries, self-respect. Billy came home later with 2 tickets in his hand. A cabin in Vermont, just us. No phones, no noise. I smiled. "Let's go." As we packed that night, I realized this was what family meant to me now, not blood, not obligation, but someone who chose me, just as I finally chose myself. Vermont was everything Billy promised. It would be silent, green, alive. Mornings were filled with birdsong and the smell of strong coffee. Afternoons passed in a blur of writing, hiking, and laughter. We didn't check emails. We didn't talk about the past. We just lived. On the 3rd morning, I sat out on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring into the pine trees. Billy brought me a steaming mug and kissed the top of my head. "I think I finally found it," I whispered. He sat beside me. "Found what?" "Peace. Real, bone, deep peace." He smiled. "You earned it." We stayed a week in that little cabin, and in that time, I realized I had built something greater than a career, greater than a platform. I had built a life I was proud of. When we returned home, I had dozens of speaking requests waiting. Universities, nonprofits, conferences. People wanted to talk about family dynamics, boundaries, financial abuse. And they wanted me to lead those conversations. I accepted a few, declined others. I didn't need to chase everything anymore. I had the power to choose. 1 year after my accident, I stood on a stage in New York City, looking out at a packed auditorium. Behind me, a screen displayed the title of my talk, "Chosen, Not Inherited, Rewriting the Meaning of Family." As I shared my story, I saw tears, nods, tight hand-holding, and when I finished, the applause was thunderous. After the event, a young woman approached me, eyes red but determined. "My mom calls me ungrateful every time I say no," she said. Your story. It gave me the courage to set my first boundary. I took her hand. It gets easier. And you're not alone. That night, Billy and I walked hand in hand through the city. We stopped at a small cafe, shared dessert, and talked about the future. Do you ever think you'll speak to them again? He asked gently. I thought for a long time. Maybe, if I ever believe they truly see me. Not their version of me, but the real one. And if they don't? I smiled. Then I keep walking. Months later, my parents sent a formal letter. No manipulation, no blame. Just a short note acknowledging their mistakes. No asks. Just an apology. I read it 3 times, then folded it and placed it in a drawer. I didn't respond. Because forgiveness doesn't always require reconnection, and closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes, it's a quiet decision made in your own heart. Today, my blog continues to grow. My book remains a bestseller. I mentor young professionals learning to say no for the first time. And every time I look in the mirror, I see someone I respect. Not because I've achieved something, but because I finally believe I deserve peace. Billy and I still take trips to the cabin. We laugh more than we ever did. And we talk often about one day adopting. Not because we feel incomplete, but because we have so much love to give. And love, I've learned, is the only thing that truly defines a family. Not obligation, not guilt, not blood, just love.